Everyone thinks money screams, but they don't realize that true power is silent. I've spent 20 years signing contracts worth millions, yet my own son looked at me with pity, believing I was just a simple woman barely scraping by. Little did he know, the woman he was ashamed of was the one holding his entire world together. People say that money talks, but I have always made silence my strength. I serve as a regional director at a large multinational company, earning $50,000 every month, yet to my son, Jason, I was just an ordinary, tired office employee. I never disclosed my wealth because, in my eyes, true dignity is never dependent on a bank balance. I grew up in an era where character was defined by one's actions, not their accessories. One weekend, Jason called me, his voice strained with anxiety. He invited me to an exclusive dinner to meet his wife Olivia's wealthy and elitist parents, Victoria and Robert, who were visiting from abroad. It was evident from Jason's hesitant tone that he was embarrassed by my simplicity. They had already labeled me as simple and pitiful, based on what Jason had told them. At that moment, a cold, calculated decision formed in my mind. If they were looking for a poor, naive mother to judge, I would give them exactly that performance. I arrived at the restaurant in my oldest, most shapeless clothes, a faded dress and worn-out shoes. Victoria and Robert didn't even glance at me when I sat down, as if I were a servant who had wandered into the wrong room by mistake. Throughout the meal, they incessantly bragged about their luxury real estate, high-end investments, and the exorbitant cost of their designer outfits. When they condescendingly asked me about my little office job, I pretended to be timid, fumbled my words, and acted as if I were truly uneducated and overwhelmed by the menu. The tension peaked when they offered me a $700 charity allowance to help me live more comfortably so I wouldn't become a burden to their precious children. That was the moment I awakened the executive within me, the woman who has managed thousands of employees and multi-million-dollar budgets for 2 decades. I set my napkin down, straightened my posture, and let the timid facade melt away. My eyes locked onto Victoria's, and my voice dropped to a razor-sharp, professional calm. "Victoria," I began, my tone freezing the air around the table. "Your wealth may have bought you those expensive clothes, but it clearly never taught you the basic manners of a decent human being." I then methodically revealed my reality. I had been earning $50,000 a month for 20 years. I explained that I oversee operations across 5 countries, signing contracts that would make their heads spin. Their faces went from arrogance to confusion and finally to absolute horror. When Robert's platinum credit cards were suddenly declined by the restaurant system, the silence was deafening. I calmly pulled out my own black, unlimited corporate card and tossed it onto the table. "Pay for the dinner and keep the change," I said. "Robert, you have earned money, but I have earned respect and character. You show off your wealth like a child, while I use mine to build a life and sustain thousands of families." That night, Jason's view of the world shifted. He finally realized his mother was not a weak woman, but a self-made fighter who had built an empire from nothing. Olivia, watching the destruction of her parents' ego, finally recognized the hollowness of her upbringing. I didn't look back as I left the restaurant, because I knew I had left my mark. The true wealth was the profound peace I felt as I took a taxi home, knowing I had finally taught my son the most important lesson of his life. Money is just a tool, never an identity.